I'm currently running the autonomous vehicle program in Ruter. And first of all, I will start the session with introducing two scenarios. There's a bunch of scenarios, of course, but I will start to introduce two scenarios of what we can expect into the future when introducing this amazing technology of autonomous vehicles. Also, Xavier here, where are you? Xavier, he left the building. Okay, great presentation, and also pinpoints a lot of the things ahead. So let's take it from there. So this is really one of the first scenarios that I would like to share with you. The scenario where all of us are keep using our own privately owned car for mobility, and thinking that each person its own mobility unit. The other scenario that I would like to and also, if you look at it, the thoughts of congestion and environmental cost, lower standards of city life. This is what we are looking at ahead of us in 10, maybe maximum 15 years if we just do nothing. The other scenario I would like to introduce to you is that this scenario where we utilize electrical vehicles, we heavily utilize assets, share assets, and quite frankly introduced a large fleet of small shared automized vehicles into our society. Then we have the potential benefits of an environmental friendly and transport, but also having the possibility to start your day with a cup of coffee and a friendly chat with a nice neighbor on your way to work. So these are the two scenarios we're going to talk about, and this is kind of looks like a utopic scenario that we haven't really or we ain't going to get there. It kind of looks utopic and maybe is, but and a lot of people around us today also think that we maybe not get to the stage with the automized vehicle fully solving our mobility needs. In Ruter, we do think differently. We think the reality is already here. That reality, we have tested it in our own city. But also, if you go and take Xavier's example, that reality is already here.
With multiple stops, and I want to end at the target parking lot, so I'm doing it this way. The trip is going to be $33, and if I click next, it's me and my good friend Lars, Gunnar, Lundestad. Request car. And we'll see what it says. Here we go, 16 minutes.
So the point there is that the future is already here, and we need to embrace it, but we need to make sure that it's introduced in a society in a sustainable way. So by that, just a short recap of Ruter. We are the public transport authority in the Norwegian capital region of Oslo. We basically have 23% of all public transport and serving 23% of Norwegian population. We also have something around 38% market share in the Norwegian capital region with our services. We do have something like 97% customer satisfaction on board, which we think is great. And even among the general population, we have something like 75% satisfaction rate. That we think is a really great place to start to introduce new mobility solutions. But of course, to start off where we want to go, we do think that sustainable freedom of movement is the way to go, and that is also the vision of Ruter. And of course, there were some questions about the sustainability of automated vehicles earlier today. And in 2018, we started to notice in the market that there's a bunch of things and reports stating that introduction of automated vehicles may not be as sustainable as we would like to see. With the headlines like Uber and Lyft is increased traffic delays in San Francisco by 40%. That makes us think twice, and we decided to do our own study. It's a theoretical study of how autonomous cars may change transport in cities. Meaning that how will automated vehicles change Oslo, our capital in Norway? And we did that in 2 different dimensions. The theoretical study, we simulated a based scenario where we basically is today with quite large number of people preferring public transport, but they own their own cars as well. And the second scenario is basically where we have a large fleet of small shared automated vehicles, where the fleet is owned by the society, and also all the people in the region, as many as possible, prefer using public transport, meaning share the vehicles. Right, and the other scenario is basically a scenario is where each of us are basically swapping over Teslas or Polestars or Volvo or BMWs to my own autonomous vehicle. And the fourth scenario is basically where we do the Uber and Lyft introduction of autonomous cars in our city. Meaning that we have the Waymo and the Cruise in a Uber and Lyft model. So these are the 4 scenarios we simulated in the study. And the study result was quite astonishing. First of all, we see that if we introduced autonomous cars in a public transport system with a large fleet of small shared vehicles, you can reduce the vehicle fleet in your city, in Oslo, in our region, with more than 90%. Meaning that we go from more than 600,000 privately owned vehicles down to something like 20,000-30,000 vehicles. That's fully possible with the introduction of automated vehicles. Another even greater news is that you can also, at the same time, reduce the amount of kilometers driven by something about around 14 to 31%. Meaning that we have a huge environmental positive impact to introducing automated vehicles. But again, going back to the first scenario that I talked about, is that if you introduce it in a Uber and Lyft way, instead of the public transport way, you will basically double the traffic on our roads in the Oslo capital region. And that's something we definitely not want. So this is the background of everything we do in Ruter. Is it comparable? Is it realistic? Of course, it's a theoretical scenario. We have seen a bunch of other cities doing the same. Last year, Göteborg in Sweden did the same kind of study of how things will change with the introduction of automated vehicles. And it basically underlined the same answers. We need to do the introduction in a more sustainable way than just letting private people buy their own automated vehicles. Okay, but the question is really, how does this system work? I mean, I'm standing here saying that we can replace all the privately owned cars in our region. But then a lot of you will say, hey, what about my nice vehicle? Of course, a system and a service like that needs to be more than great. And we do think that it's possible in our simulation that you will just wake up one morning, commuting to work, bring up your smartphone, click come and get me within 2 minutes. That's faster than you're able to pick up your keys and maybe get your car ready, open the garage door and so on. That service will be possible. We have simulated that more than 80% of our rides in our city will be executed within 2 minutes. That's great. That is better than private loan car. But it was also 3 takeaways from the Oslo study. One of them, of course, is that ride sharing is one of the most important factor. It's a feedback loop there. Meaning that we need to make sure that when we introduced automated cars, more than one person need to go in the same car. And another one is that we see that we cannot resolve public mobility without keeping our large buses, keeping our trams, keeping our subways and trams. These are high capacity public transport that we still need to leverage in a future system with automated vehicles. And ideally, to keep the to have more, how you say, stuck in a word there, but to obtain public health, we also should encourage people to use bicycle and walking and so on, where it's possible. So don't replace every type of mobility with autonomous vehicles. So that's 3 takeaways. Of this reason, Ruter has done a bunch of pilots since 2018, and together with Holo, you will hear from them later today. And the last one we did in an area, suburban area, where we tested mainly automated vehicles in Scandinavian weather. That is always one of the arguments for not introducing autonomous vehicles in Norway and Scandinavia is really because of the weather. And we wanted to test whether or not it's possible to operate it. So here you can see an example of that pilot, 1-year pilot in Scandinavia. So here you can see it's actually snowing more than it looks like on the video. But it was basically impossible to drive the car manually in this instance. It ended up, we had to really later that day, had to stop the pilot, not because of the driving system, because it operated, but the safety driver wasn't comfortable with driving the vehicle and looking out the streets. And here you can see that even in snowy weather, we are driving at speed at 30 kilometers an hour, and it performed beautifully. So in our opinion, that case is solved. It's possible to operate autonomous vehicles in Scandinavian weather. However, there has been an issue. We have transported more than 30,000 paying passengers over the last years. And we see that the problem is these passengers, most of these passengers has been technotourism. While we have something like 82% of the passengers have been technotourists, meaning that they do it for fun. It thinks it's a cool thing to do, but it doesn't really solve a problem. But only 12% of the passengers actually used the service for daily commuting. So, and then looking into this problem, meaning that what you see here on the left-hand side is the bus lines in Oslo downtown. Here you can see bus lines. In additional, we have e-scooters, bikes, we have train, subway, and also tram in this area, and rental cars and a bunch of things. We have basically solved the mobility in Oslo downtown and the Oslo center. And if you look at the area that we covered with this map here, it's around 400 square kilometers. So we have solved the city center commuting problem. If you look at the other map here on the right-hand side, this is really the south part going from here and down. This is obviously a lot less dense compared to the other side. Here you have the bus lines. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 maybe train station, and nothing more really. And the only viable option in that area is privately owned car. And this area is 1,800 square kilometers. This is the problem we need to solve with automated vehicles. Not really that. And going back to Xavier's presentation earlier today, saying that, yeah, the technology is ready, and there's a bunch of big companies that would like to introduce robotaxis. Yes, they would like to solve this problem that is already solved. We would like to solve this problem that is not yet solved. So, our game plan, and I think we are quite well underway. We have a game plan for transforming the transportation system. We are doing some technology demonstration with 15 vehicles. Actually, we are going to add that to something like 20 vehicles starting this year. Then, the moment we are able to remove the safety driver, that is also always the game changer here. We are all agree on that. We will increase the number of vehicles to something like 200 vehicles. Testing the business viability of it. And of course, introducing such a new system requires us to really solve real-life problems, commuting problems, as we just showed you. So that is the next step. The moment that we are fully solving the mobility issues that people have, we will scale it to 20 to 30,000 vehicles within 2030. And this is settled in the board of directors of the Public Transport Authority in our region. So this is our game plan. So the first step in this game plan is really to do the Grorud Valley pilot. We have defined a quite large area in the northern part of our responsibility area. We will have a bunch of pickup and drop-off points. Then we have made a deal together with, again, our R&D partner Holo, with Mobileye, having 15 vehicles. And that will start with operating in the whole area, firstly with safety driver. Within a half year, something like that, the safety driver will be removed. And of course, it's a stretch, but that is also our goal. So just what kind of service will we introduce in this area? Basically, the service will be something like this. You use your smartphone to call the car. The car will come and pick you up, together with another passenger already on board, maybe. And then, after taking you from where you summoned it to the place you would like to go, drop you off. And of course, it will be a bunch of different vehicles in a free float system within the area of Grorud Valley. And just to make sure that you understand the system, it basically use your mobile phone to call the vehicle, take you from where you are to the place you would like to go, together with the other passengers, where they would like to go. And then there's also always a discussion about the technology and so on. And Mobileye, it's an American, it's owned by Intel, so it's one of the larger producer of chips. And we do think they have the technology ready for removing the safety driver. They have a couple of services around the world already. And basically this is a technology that is able to handle everyday traffic, the normal speed of 80-90%. You can see here quite standard traffic situations with unprotected left turn as an example here. Vehicles parks in the streets, highways, high speeds. Actually, quite funny. We went to the headquarters and tested the vehicles in Jerusalem. As many of you recall, it's a quite old and complicated city, and it performed beautifully for more than an hour without any intervention. The safety driver was basically sitting and talking to us. So, as you see, we do think it's the technology is ready, and we have seen it operating in the States, China, etc. So prepare to really dig into this new situation. So. Just to give you like a practicalities on the Grorud Valley pilot, we will start adapting the technology to the Norwegian situation, like like way of driving public roads, Norwegian traffic signs, how does like pedestrians act and so on, and then we will have 1 year of user testing, and then also financed by the European Union, we will do more tests with other technology providers. So altogether, we will end up having a fleet of 3 different providers in Grorud Valley, operating something around 20 vehicles without a safety driver. And in this Ultimo consortium, we are basically doing this same kind of test in Germany, in Switzerland, and of course in Norway. In Germany, we are collaborating with Deutsche Bahn. In Switzerland, with CBG. You're here today, aren't you? Good to see you. And then, of course, we do think that we will be able to really provide the services that is necessary in order to transform the public transit. Okay, there's one thing that we learned together with Xavier here today, that really the technology is here today, not maybe here where we are, but the technology is ready for serving public transport. But we do see that it's not necessarily in Europe this transport revolution is going, and really is leading the way. So we have one final call to action that we would like to talk to everyone in the public transit space to come talk to us and to be a part of joining forces, so to say, in order to improve the development of these automized vehicles in public transit. So feel free to contact me or my colleague Klaus here if you would like to discuss how we can make sure that we gain forces in order to make sure that this development is speeding up in Europe as well. So this is very shortly the concept of what we're thinking in Ruter, and I'm a little bit ahead of time. I hope that is okay, Tim.
I think that's definitely okay, Lars, because I can imagine we have many questions because this was a real inspiring presentation. So thank you for that. Who's willing to take the first one? Oh, Clément was the fastest one, so I'll quickly go to him. But I'll keep in mind that I've seen some other hands here as well.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for this presentation. Yeah, we met already, but my question is quite simple. Why automated vehicles and not electric vehicles? I mean, public transit, of course, not individual ones.
Okay, that's a great question. I haven't thought about that perspective. You see that in Ruter, we are already electrified. I mean, that is old news. It's a bunch of years since we introduced the first 200 electric buses, large buses, and our whole fleet is electrified. So when we are talking about the next step in mobility, we kind of think ahead of electrifying the fleet. So obviously, first step is to electrify. But one fun fact, it's really crazy fact. We in Norway, we increased the number of privately owned vehicles on our roads last year quite heavily. And the reason why we are increasing the number of vehicles is because the vehicles are better, cheaper, electrified, more like fitted to the personal space and the feeling of greatness while driving to work. So the privately owned vehicle is already a problem to solve. And we see that like even if it's electrified, I mean, you still have the same congestions and you have the same traffic jam. So electrifying the vehicle fleet is not, yes, it's important, but it's important to remove it and then remove the kilometers driven on the roads, if that was an answer to your question.
My question was more about why not a human-driven vehicle? Why automated? Because it could be cheaper with a human-driven bus or minivan, or put it the way you want.
Okay. In Norway, the base salary in Norway, I mean, it's crazy. So for us, it's heavy. I mean, the public transport is. We have something like 60% of the cost of public transport. 60% of the cost is based on the human driver. And if we can reduce that by, let's say, one safety operator from the operation center for every 20, every 100 car, it will make a difference.
And the computer doesn't strike.
Exactly. But we don't have that problem that much in Norway anyway. So, okay. I kind of feeling that I'm halfway answering questions.
Yeah, I get the point. But the thing is, even though it's a level 4 service, you still need human beings to take care of it. So maybe less than the number of vehicles, but there could be your main reason for why you want to invest. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you. I had some hands here. Yes.
Hello, I'm Guy Rijmakers from Switch. I think it was about your 12% that you mentioned, in the sense that technology is one, regulation is also another, but we also see that human behavior is a challenge. And because if there are less vehicles on the road, then why not just take what I'm used to and I have more space to use my own car? Did you also have the research or some investigation about how can you force that change in human behavior, and how strong do you see that as a barrier to really make the business grow?
Yeah, that's okay. I think it was kind of 2 or 3 questions there. Firstly, the one is like, how can you compete with a privately owned car? That's one of the questions, and it's hard. But what we know, it's the current cost of public transport is too high, and we cannot provide the door-to-door private feeling with the cost base. So that's kind of one. If we have sufficient large fleet and we have done the calculation, we need something between 20 and 30,000 to get down to the 2-minute level of response time. So I think that's one of them. The other question was The other question was. Yes, and that's also a great and a large problem, because do we really think that people will like to also share an optimized vehicle or an autonomous vehicle? We do think so. In Norway, at least, we have done a bunch of research. We have our own research projects, finding the solutions and how to manipulate with a positive sense, how to make people share small shared vehicles. And the last question that was regarding if it's possible to force this kind of behavior. And in Oslo, we are already doing that en masse, and we are going to do it even more. We are removing curbside parking in the city. We are transforming roads to public areas with parks and so on, basically removing the possibility to use cars. So we have what we call a toll ring, like making it more costly to use your own car. And we do think, and we have that discussion with the municipality and the city council, to straight out ban privately owned autonomous vehicles in our city. And we have all the tools needed to do that, but we don't see the need for it yet. But at some point, when talking to different tech providers and robot taxi companies, we are basically saying, in Europe, within 10 years, we are going to ban privately owned robot taxis.
Okay, thank you. One more question. Yes.
Thank you. Simon Collet, I'm working for the PTO Wallonia in Belgium. I have a question about employment. You presented a very sustainable scenario with a hardly decrease of number of the cars, which means less raw materials and energy. That's very good. But don't you think there will be a resistance of the OEM? And then they will claim about the less of employment? And because when you see the German drama last week about the project of the Commission to forbid the thermic engines and the issues of that, maybe you will face the same issue with autonomous vehicles shared.
Yes, we have those discussions. Great. Okay, break it down. First of all, who is driving the car today? Exactly, you all are driving the cars today. Are you employed by anyone? What's your average salary in the car? It's kind of a crappy salary, I guess. So the point is that we are not replacing like professional drivers. We are replacing you as like on your leisure time. So basically, we are creating more jobs by doing this transformation. We do think that for each vehicle we need to, as we said, maybe 100 vehicles, maybe 20 vehicles. We don't know the scale of it really yet, but at least 100 vehicles. And then you have 20,000 or 30,000 only in our regions. That's a bunch of new jobs created. In the car industry, however, we don't have that in Norway.
Yes, I see one hand over there.
Hello, Tim Asperger, City of Leuven. I have two questions I add to the remark. End of this year, we organized the International Conference of Polis. And the key topic there on the plenary is the reinventing of the business case of the old school car industry. So we will have the CEO of Renault, and all these car industry has to reinvent the business case, because what you have told, it's correct. Within 10 years, the private autonomous car will be banned in the cities. And my question was, you had a very clear vision on the balance between robotaxis and mass public transportation, which can also be autonomous. But how a public authority can try to safeguard that balance, because we are the owner, we are the market master of the public domain, and how our public domain should be used. And we want to have it used in an efficient way where urban transport is the key issue. And I believe in the role of the robotaxi, I believe in the role of autonomous mass public transport. But mass public transport always needs public money. And the robotaxi doesn't need it. So they will convince a lot of mayors in Europe, we can do it for free.
Exactly. I totally aligned on your thoughts there. One thing, remember the first one, remember the statistics of over simulation show that we can reduce the number of kilometers driven to something like 13 to 31%. And then you have some mobility growth, and then you have people growth and so on. So if you look at the actual kilometers driven, yes, you can produce few vehicles, but you have the same amount of kilometers, and then you can twist the business model to calculate the usage instead of units, going from units to service. So that's a possibility for the OEMs of the world, if they are a part of it, of course. The second, how to make sure that the public transit, the current high capacity public transit isn't cannibalized by this new service, and how to get away from the concept of us having to subsidize like public transport. First of all, I do think it's, as a city, we do need to take control of the user journey, so to say, meaning that you get the rides that are environmental friendly instead of being suggested the robotaxi. That's of course one of them. But we do think that reducing the cost of the fleet, we do think we will be able to provide the same amount of service as the privately owned car with lower cost than a privately owned car. Meaning that we think it's possible to, based on our business case at least, we think it's possible to be, within 3-4 years, have a better service with a lower price than cars. Kind of complicated answer. The point is that we do think it's possible to provide public mobility with a lower cost of a car. But we cannot compete with a robotaxi if people are willing to pay more. Then you have to regulate it.